So I have a slider mounted on top of a tripod, but I can also do this. So if you'd like to know how to get cinematic footage for less money, keep watching because you're watching Blue Collar Guy. Okay, we're back. So today we're talking about building a cinema rig for less. So you've seen cinema rigs and they can get quite expensive. Some of them are made by very well-known companies. Some of them have counterbalances. Some of them have special tripods. Some of them are on dolly tracks. Well, I've got this whole setup here, and it's a lot cheaper than one of those setups because those setups can run you tens of thousands of dollars. Now, this setup that I have here isn't meant for big cameras, okay? So you're not going to put a Sony FX9 on here. You're not going to put a RED system. You're not going to put anything like that. But if you want to just put a mirrorless camera, or if you want to put a bridge camera like this one, or if you want to put camcorder even, this will handle it as long as the camcorder isn't too big. Now, so I chose this particular camera here. This is a Panasonic FZ 2500. And this particular camera has a 1-inch sensor. It has ND filters. It has a kick-ass zoom lens on it. It also has a lot of, you can do the log settings, and you can get some really good images out of this camera. And I've already filmed one parade with it, and they turned out pretty good. The only thing that I noticed is I'd like a little bit more stability in my shots. So in the last parade that I filmed, there were some issues because I had to deal with some crowds, and it wasn't easy to move around, and I was using kind of a monopod setup. And monopods are great, and professional monopods are even better. But the problem is, well, you're still going to have issues with stability. And this camera also has stabilization in it. But I thought for my next St. Patrick's Day parade, I'm going to take this rig and I'm going to take it up to a place in Quebec, and I'm going to film their parade with it. And it has a lot of advantages over the other rig because now I can go side to side very smoothly, and I can also turn the rig around and I can get these in and out shots. These particular shots are going to come in handy and you can even rotate as you're going in and out, and it just gives things a little bit more in the stability department when you're doing some filming. Now, this tripod is on casters, and I might not have a smooth surface to roll on. So I might have to edit out the transitions, but after I'm into the transition completely, once the slider is going in and out or side to side, that's still usable footage because it's going to be smooth. The other thing is that I've picked this particular slider because it has a counterbalance. So I'm going to back up a bit. So this particular slider has this counterbalance wheel. And as you can see, if I crank on this wheel, it goes back and forth. And I even added this piece right here. So you can get these little sleeves from Amazon. I'm going to put some of this stuff in the description, so if you have any questions, and you're going to say, well, why did you put this one here and you got this one too? Well, it's just so that it reduces vibration as this thing starts spinning around, because when you don't have one on the other side, you get a vibration that you're not going to want. And I didn't like that vibration, so I just solved it by adding a weight on the other side. And the hole's already there. So I don't know why they just didn't put a handle on the other side, but I don't know. Newer just decided to do that. The other thing that you're going to need is these arms on the side of it. So the arms connect to the tripod. And yes, this is a fairly heavy setup. I would say it's about 25 pounds maybe at the most. It's not unmanageable. And these arms keep your slider from dipping from side to side as the weight transfers from here to here. You're not going to have that seesaw effect. And they're not totally necessary, but if you're taking this outside, you're going to want it as secure as possible. And having these arms also adds more rigidity to it, which strengthens the whole unit, which, you know, if you're adding weight to this thing, you can do this. Now, there's one component that some people might not agree with, and that is this geared video head. You don't have to have the geared video head, but the issue is that you're going to have is that I'm just going to demonstrate. So you see how this, if you're on a bit of a hill and you need to do a correction, and you need to do a correction quickly, grabbing the ball head and loosening that, it just lets go of everything. And that's not really precise control over your camera. So having this means I can just adjust it, and I can get everything fixed with just a minute adjustment. So if I'm on an uneven surface and I have to do some corrections, I can do them a lot easier and a lot simpler. But yes, these do cost money. Now, it does have other purposes too. So if you're doing photography, you're going to want one of these anyway, because anyone that does macro photography, or if you're working with zoom lenses like this and you're zoomed in all the way, any small movement over here will translate into a large movement over there. So that is the purpose of this geared video head. So some people might view that as overcomplicated, and well, I don't know. I guess it's up to you whether or not you think that's overcomplicated or not. For me, I like as much control as I can, and I found that it is worth the investment. Does it add weight? Yeah. And it also raises up the rig a little bit too. Without this, your rig will be a little bit lower. So as you can see, when I move the slider back and forth, it's coming into frame right now, and I'm moving it out, the wheel will start to spin. So I added this extra weight on this side just to reduce vibration. This is what I was talking about. Now the rails are made of carbon fiber, and these rod arms, and this is the connector that I put on here. And this connector, and I'm just going to get a different shot from it, is from Ulanzi. And it might be a little bit hard to see, but they just are twist lock connectors, and they cost about $9, so they're not that expensive. So you get two of them for about $18. Now, why would I recommend these? Well, if you looked on how these things thread into the bottom, you'll thank me for it, because it'll be quite the pain in the butt to get these mounted on the bottom of this without one of these in between them first. Because if you can kind of see, and I'm just going to grab my light here. Okay, so these are the connectors at the bottom of the slider. And these are made by Ulanzi. Is that whole piece right here. Let me just see if I can get the light in there. It's hard to hold the light and everything at the same time. So this piece here is the connector part. That little piece there, that's just a part of the rod. The rods are adjustable, and then at the bottom of the rod, you have these little clamp things. And I'm just going to light that up better. So there's your clamp that goes onto there. Before you tighten everything up, make sure that you're level, because you can't level it after you're snugged up. And then I've got the same thing on this side over here. And then now you don't necessarily have to have this ball mount here, but it was the one that comes with it, and it's also an extension, so if you need to go up taller, you can. Then I have this one here, and you will need this if you're going to connect the geared head, because without this one, it's just going to sit completely flat and it's not going to work. So you're going to have that. And people might say, well, why not just have the ball head and have this? And as I said before, if you need to make micro adjustments, you cannot do micro adjustments with this. Once you loosen that knob, that's it. Now the slider also has this little detaining knob. So if you want to tighten it down, you can. If you don't need it to move, you can do that. And then you have, here's the FH3. Why did I pick this particular camera? Well, this particular camera has got a 1-inch sensor, so it has the same size sensor as a Panasonic CX20 or one of those cameras. Now they're going to have different kinds of features, but this one is a lot more portable. It's also got a decent zoom lens. It has variable automatic ND filters where you can set your different presets. And it has the ability to do remote control on this side, which is something that I wanted as well. The other thing too is the zoom on this camera, when the lens comes out, it comes out all the way. All the zooming is internal, so it's not going to affect your balance, which is very similar also to a professional camcorder. So I picked up this camera here for about $800. So why did I pick this particular camera instead of a professional camcorder? So I picked this particular camera instead of a professional camcorder because it is a lot lighter. Professional camcorders can weigh 5-6 pounds. This one's about 2 pounds. It has a 1-inch sensor, just like professional camcorder. It has similar logs that you can put in there. And it's just easier to manipulate and handle. It's also able to take pictures. If I do need to take some pictures or some screenshots or things like that, I can do so with this as well. And it's got the hot shoe on the top for that. I think that this is a good parade setup. So if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments, or maybe you'll have a suggestion of what you think might work better. I'm going to go a little bit lower now. Now we're going to go down to the wheels. So this wheel set here is also made by K&F Concepts. And I like their equipment. As you can see, it's adjustable. You just unloosen this latch here, and then you can tighten it up on the feet there. And now you can roll the whole rig around. So as you can see, this is a pretty sturdy rig. It is not going to fall down. It's not going to fall apart. It's going to be very effective at filming things like parades. It also looks professional. And the other thing I wanted to point out about the counterbalance is that having a counterbalance enables you to have a slow start and a slow finish. So watch when I let go. See how it just gradually kind of stops on its own? You don't get that with it if you don't have a counterbalance. And if you also want to do a somewhat vertical shoot or something like that, you're going to want to have a crank arm. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with this setup. You know, I can move it around. I can lock the wheels, by the way. The wheels do lock. And I can even add a monitor if I want to. You know, I can. This is great if you're filming something and you just want it to look a little more professional, but you don't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. So I've discussed before that some tripods can go up to $30,000. Yeah, you heard me right. They go up to $30,000. Now, are they lighter than this tripod? Do they offer more features than this tripod? Yeah, probably. But you're going to have to make compromises. And I think that this one sort of offers me all of the pluses with very little compromises. One of the compromises about a rig like this is it is not fast to set up. So it's going to take you about 20 minutes to set a rig like this up. Okay, so the procedure of assembling this is first you're going to lay out your wheels. Then you're going to undo your tripod. You're going to put the feet in the wheels. You're going to have all your adjustments open. And then you're going to put the tripod in there, lock it in place. Then you're going to mount this slider unit on top of the tripod. And you're also going to need 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapters. So if you don't know what those are, I'll put the link, I'll put a picture up on the screen to show you what those are. They basically just convert a 3/8 inch bolt to a 1/4 inch bolt. And after you get that on there, then you're going to put this ball head, then you're going to put this geared fluid head, or sorry, you're going to put this geared head, then you're going to put the fluid head, and then you're going to have your rig is pretty much finished at that point. Now, if you have any lighting or anything like that, you're going to have to add that later. I am not going to add any microphones to it because the sound that I'll be recording at the parade is going to be copyrighted and I won't be able to use it and monetize my videos. So I will use my own music that I am licensed to use. So we're going to go back into the studio and we're going to talk about this rig, and I'm going to give you some final thoughts on it to see who this would be good for. Like, who is this really for, and how much money should you really invest? Like, how much does a rig like this cost? So we're back in the studio, and now we're going to talk about who is this setup for? Is it for the extreme beginner? No. Is it for the avid professional? No. A lot of those people would not fit this type of gear. This is for someone in between. This is for someone who is transitioning from being a beginner into a professional. That's me. I am not a professional and I'm not a beginner anymore. I have cameras. I have gear. I understand how settings work and things of that nature, but I'm not as good as a filmographer. I am not a cinematographer. I am not Spielberg. I am not Michael Bay by any stretch of the imagination, and you already have figured that out. What I'm trying to show you is my journey and what I'm going through. Now, why do I film parades? Well, parades for me, anyway, are a good start. They get me familiar with very difficult scenarios because parades are ever changing. You've got different kinds of people going by. You've got different focal lengths where you may have to zoom in and out. You have different lighting challenges. So for me, if I can deal with all of these challenges and overcome them, then when I'm in a more controlled environment, like a more studio environment like this, it makes it a lot easier. I can do things a lot faster. So I'm trying to really hone my skills. So if you're wondering why I'm doing parades and doing live events, for me, that's part of the learning process. Put yourself in very challenging positions where you've got all these dynamics going on and you have to address them on the fly. That's why I do parades. Because when I start doing documentaries or doing short films or things of that nature, then it's going to help me deal with those challenges. I'm going to learn how to deal with the stress of dealing with those things a lot easier. So bringing more and more gear to parades helps me not only learn about the gear, but it helps me learn about what's going to happen around me. Is this going to be useful? Is it going to make it look cool or not? This is the whole purpose. YouTube isn't me just teaching you. It's about us learning from each other. So I'm going to put myself in these little awkward situations, and we're going to see what we can learn from this. And this is why I was experimenting with things like this geared head. And I even tried to put this little handle on these because I thought it might make it a little bit better. But the problem is that it didn't work. And it was a $4 experiment, and this is just basically a fishing reel. And I thought it might give me a little bit more leverage, but it didn't really work. Now, if K&F Concepts is listening, there is a company that makes one where it kind of flips out and it's got the little cranks, but the quality of their head isn't as good as the quality of this head. So in their next generation of product, I would like to see something with a little handle that, for us guys that do video, where we can make things a little bit easier for us. Because there is a place for that type of scenario in video. You know, we have been using those kind of geared wheels on video tripods for many, many years, and it does give a different kind of look. But As far as honing in on things with micro adjustments, and if you wanted to take some pictures while you're doing your video, this is a handy little unit. Some people might think it's an overcomplication, but I disagree. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about very briefly was those connectors. This is what they look like, and I just wanted to give you the model number. It's CO16. They're made by Ulanzi, and I find that they're very handy for connecting those arms to the bottom of the slider. They work perfectly. They're cheap. They're like $10 each instead of paying $30 each. You can also get one of these. So if you had to mount different types of cameras or multiple cameras, one of these little plates, this one's made by UTEBIT. UTEBIT. And I found that this one was a good price, and it's fairly thick too. So I think that's about 1/8 of an inch thick. So it's fairly strong. Now, I do have some more gear that I'm going to be implementing with that stuff. I think it's going to be some stuff from Telesin. So, and that's just going to be things that can help hold extra cameras, because not only do I want to film the parade, but I want to film myself filming the parade so that you can see what movements I'm making, that sort of thing. Again, I'm not a professional, don't claim to be a professional. I'm just trying to figure this out as I go. And I have been doing a lot of reading on the subject and a lot of videos on this. It's been quite a learning experience, and it's very, very challenging. But I am happy with that tripod setup. So let me know in the comments what you think about that tripod setup. Do you think it'll be good for parades? Do you think that it'll take too long to set up or be too cumbersome? I would like your thoughts on that. But I will tell you this, that whole setup, minus the camera, is under $700 if you were to add up all the components and put it in there. And that is pretty much part and parcel with a lot of higher end tripods that would cost thousands more, I might add. So if you were to get video setups that could do what that could do, that were already like in a kit form, you'd probably be looking at $4,000 or $5,000. Now, it would be able to hold heavier cameras like Sony FX6s or FX9s, RED systems, but those cameras are worth, 10 grand, maybe even more by the time you get done putting monitors on them and things like that. These are very heavy setups. I'm not looking for a heavy setup. I'm just looking for something where I can learn my skills, and I don't want to spend a fortune on it. And I want to get into more of like kind of documentary filmmaking. I want to hone my skills first. So when it comes to YouTube and it comes to filming, the most important thing, in my opinion, is that it's the content that speaks for itself. The equipment comes second. What your story is should be number one. Your equipment should be number two. And then as you grow, you can slowly improve your gear and your equipment over time. Buying very expensive gear right off the hop and not having the skills to utilize it will definitely show in the end result. And then you're going to say to yourself, wow, I bought all this expensive gear, but the film turned out terrible. Case in point, how many high-budget movies have you been to that were absolutely awful? These were multi-million-dollar, blockbuster-style movies, and they were absolutely terrible. And you thought to yourself, why did they spend the money making this terrible movie? That's a good example of it doesn't matter what the gear is. The story is the most important part. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you at the next video.